We are back with yet another video about Ford, but this time it is very specific to the one car that everybody has been talking about on the Indian internet, which is the Ford Endeavour. Now, the hype around this SUV has been high, I'd say to some degree reasonably so. And the last time around when we made a video, we were discussing about what options Ford has with the Endeavour itself. Variants, design, engine options, that was a very brief part of the discussion. It was mainly about how is it that they should bring the Endeavour in. But now Arun has had a chance to go to the Bangkok Motor Show, check out the Endeavour in person, and get context about okay, how is this car if you were to check it out on the showroom, get an experience of it, and just see how does it compare to the Endeavour as we knew it in India, and to answer that one big question, that is the hype for this Endeavour as a product, irrespective of Ford's history in India or whatever, worth it? Does it really, is there not a bigger challenge than just arriving and expecting everybody to buy it here?
Sure. In this video, what we're going to do is set context as to what you can, should, and might. Shouldn't expect from the Endeavour. Second, disclaimer right up front, I've not driven the car, quite deliberately so, because I'm not sure what engine options India is going to get, and B, roads in Bangkok are a little too good for me to make any kind of assumptions, observations.
That would be relevant to India.
That would be relevant to India, and we'll drive it when and if it gets here.
Yeah.
But the product by itself, I spent a lot of time with.
Yeah.
Looking at every tiny detail here and there, figuring out if do I really like it as much as I thought I did.
I think we should first just set context, right? What was the perspective that you went in with while looking at this Endeavour? It is a new generation of the Endeavour. Although it doesn't look like an entirely new car, the basic shape, silhouette, presence, stance of the Endeavour is identical. You do have a differentiation with the design, of course, but it's still a ladder-on-frame truck platform. It is a work SUV. As premium as it does become over here, it is more of a compact almost in certain markets, compact SUV for certain markets that's mainly used for utilitarian purposes, because at the end of the day, this is the Ford Ranger's SUV version. And that is the same case with the Fortuner and the Hilux or the MUX and the D-Max. That's basically the territory that they operate in, that they are more practical versions of work trucks.
Yeah.
That is the basic idea behind the Endeavour still. But obviously, as time progresses, they do get modernized and updated such that they become better defined and more comfortable to live with products in and of themselves.
Sure. One of the first things that I want to talk about is what it looked like on the show floor.
Better than this Endeavour we had?
I'm going to paint a picture for you. Okay, so I've walked into the Ford Pavilion at the Bangkok Motor Show, and there is a pristine white Endeavour. You know, cue the Safed Hathi references. I wanted to go with the Puja ki thali, but so a pristine white Endeavour with what I think was running 21-inch wheels, with nice V6 badging and very subtle chrome, not over the top chrome, just standing there with a nice outdoorsy background being made. And there was one in a deep orange, in a deep blue, and a matte grey, which we'll come to in a bit. My first thought when I saw the car was,
oh,
okay, not because of the way it looked, but because of how large it looked.
Okay.
Because let's set context. The Endeavour that we got in India is not a small car by any means.
Of course.
Right? It's big enough to be called a minibus. This thing feels larger.
It looks larger.
Being physically larger is one thing, and looking larger and having that extra bit of presence is a little more. And Ford's being clever with it, with the way they've added that sense of presence to it. Everything that you lay your eyes upon is visually wider or taller.
It is.
Right? You look at it dead straight. All these F-150 Raptor kit conversions that people are putting on, I get why they are doing it.
Yeah.
Because it makes the car look even more evil, even more sinister, even more aggressive.
But tastefully so.
Tastefully so. Even more powerful. That is a word I want to use. So the front, instead of being this nice rounded, cute sumo-like face, sumo as in the Japanese sumo, not the Tata sumo, right? It's gone to being flat. It's almost got a flat nose, and the headlamps have just been, they're wider, and it has this nice intricate daytime running lamp pattern with projector LEDs. That visually you feel like the height of the bonnet has gone up, right? So when you're looking at it, earlier if you'd look at the Endeavour like this, now you'd look at it like this, right? So there's a slight tilt of the neck when you're looking at the car, and you're like, oh, it is larger. On the side, the walk to the back takes a couple of steps more.
Okay.
Right? So it is larger in that sense as well, and onto the rear too, they've done away with being rounded and being smooth to it just having straight cut lines.
So there's more seriousness to the design of the Endeavour now.
There is more seriousness, and it is something, if you pick in lighter colors like the white or the silver, or go the polar opposite and pick like a black, it will really scare people if you look at it in your rear view mirror.
So exactly what I was going to ask. Literally what I was going to ask, that if you're going to have, so who between, let's say, the Fortuner Legend and the Endeavour, irrespective of what variant it comes in, which one has got the more or greater IRVM cred?
For now, I want to say it is the Endeavour. For now. But bear in mind, the Fortuner's due for an update. So when that happens, I'm not sure what that's going to look like.
Just remember this bit, it is a very important observation for the remainder of this video as well. Okay, so the exterior, I just felt like I wanted to confirm that, does it look as good in person that it does in images? And it feels like the answer is yes.
It does. And Ford being Ford, really solid sheet metal, really good paint quality. All of this is obviously the thigh spec, but I don't really expect Ford to water it down for India if it comes here. Right? So on the whole, if words like bhokal, system, and dada, bhai, all of this come into your dictionary.
Clout words.
Yeah, the clout words, Endeavour is going to deliver.
Perfect ego massage. Okay. Now on the inside, that is a place where there are certain bits that seemed kind of familiar to me. Other bits, like the design specifically, they are very different now.
It is. Again, a little bit of context setting, right? You need to understand that compared to the Fortuner, the Endeavour that we got felt luxurious.
True.
Right? The luxury that it provided was relative to the Fortuner.
Yeah.
In absolute terms, if you bought something like a Skoda Kodiaq or a Volkswagen Tiguan into the equation, the quality on the Endeavour would feel subpar compared to that.
Yeah.
In terms of quality, Ford has not taken the quantum leap that I expected them to take.
Okay.
Because in pictures, it looks like, oh wow, it's going to be epic. Newsflash, it's not.
Okay. Would a beige and black combination make it feel more luxurious? Like, because we saw this earlier also, right? The Endeavour had a black and white combination, the beige and black combination, specifically in India. But overseas in multiple markets, you'd see the Everest getting all black.
No,
Does that change things at all?
So even in Bangkok, there were multiple color options. Okay. Right? Mostly to do with the seats, but it's not the color palette.
The touch and feel.
It's the quality of materials.
So on par with what we had before, or better, slightly?
I would say it's an incremental change, not a revolutionary change. Okay. To quote a cliche, evolutionary, not revolutionary, right? There are soft touch elements like there were with the older Endeavour that we got, right? On the dashboard, on the door pad, but it feels very obvious that it is a utilitarian truck trying to wear a suit.
Which is fair enough.
Which is fair, and I again want to set a little more context.
Okay.
Because we were in Bangkok, I had the opportunity to try the new MUX, the Pajero Sport, and obviously we have reference of the Fortuner. They feel pretty much on par. Every single car in this category feels like they were meant to be rugged, but are now trying to pander to the luxury end of things.
Okay.
Right? So in terms of quality, it is still something that feels built to last, even if it is not necessarily top shelf upmarket.
Cool. So it's a glow up in the visual sense.
Yeah.
Touch and feel, it's going to be more or less on par with the Endeavour that we're familiar with, which is not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
But the design for me is a major leap, because they've definitely done a great job over there, because it does look more old school.
Yeah.
There's a sort of flatness to it, more uprightness that makes it feel a lot more SUV. and does amp up the butch factor, and they've gotten the right balance of bringing in certain modern elements like that gigantic touchscreen, and they combined it with the presence, first of all, of physical controls for the air conditioning, and those controls themselves are chunky. Like you can go for a drive in the winter with gloves on and still operate them pretty easily. Like they've got that kind of sensibility in that it's still not going into a form over function direction.
One of the things I liked about the Endeavour, that even though it has a gigantic screen, Ford did not say, hey, let's do away with the buttons.
Yeah.
Okay, that is something I absolutely love. There are physical controls for the climate control, right? For your infotainment, for your terrain response modes.
Correct.
Nothing is, limited to the big vertical screen in the center, which is always a good thing. From a design standpoint, the dashboard feels wider. Okay,
Yeah,
they've used a lot more horizontal elements except for the vertical touchscreen. So it feels like the dashboard seems slimmer. It feels slightly wider. So from the driver's seat, you see more of the bonnet, which is always the best ego massage when you're driving around.
Especially if you're saying the bonnet is slightly more
Upright.
right?
Yeah. So from the driver's seat, you genuinely get that invincible kind of feel.
Nice.
That is critical, I think, for any vehicle that wants to operate in this space. Ford's done well to redesign the steering as well. It's chunkier now. It's got, the buttons are laid out very neatly, and there are a few clever touches as well. The way the door handles are integrated,
Yeah.
it's an unnecessary detail, but I'm so glad they did it.
Yeah.
Right? It is so easy, especially if you consider driving in cold climates, right? Instead of fiddling with a small handle, you literally grab onto that, press it in, and it opens. It's still got a very, very, very solid door third. Enough to scare people, and enough to give reassurances to people about, the solidity. If you gauge your car's solidity by that, you should not.
Yeah.
But if you do, right, it is very, very reassuring. The other aspect of this interior is space.
Yeah.
Right? And you would expect space to be better because the car is physically larger.
Is it?
It's not.
Because this is what I saw, right? There were a couple of international reviews that I saw. The cabin design seemed like very different.
Yeah.
Quality, based on what I could see, seemed like a marginal difference, and you've verified that. The space didn't seem entirely all that different. If I were to say that two 6-footers, one behind the other, can be managed quite easily, that's the same as the Endeavour. If I say that the second row under thigh support is not the greatest, it is just about okay for someone who's up to 6 feet tall, but anything more than that, you'll find it lacking. Is that still the same in the second row?
Yeah.
Correct. Third row ideally suited to kids or short adults, because even compared to the MuX or the Fortuner, the Endeavour's third row was not the best in the segment. It was still ideally for smaller journeys or for kids. And there was also the variable of the panoramic sunroof eating into headroom, especially when you're seated in the rear row.
See, all this that you mentioned applies to the new Endeavour as well. Right?
That's basically what I was saying.
So, where I can sit behind my own driving position, no problems. I can squeeze behind my second row position in the third row. Push comes to shove. Would I like being seated there? Absolutely not.
So the Fortuner is still better on that front.
Even the current Fortuner is better on that front, right? The one miss, weirdly, still no one-touch tumble. I don't know why. That just seems uncalled for.
Did it still have powered rear seat fold?
Oh yeah, it did.
That was there. And
It
powered
did.
tailgate also.
Powered tailgate as well. And surprisingly, when we're talking about features, you would expect it to be a quantum leap in features. It's not. But it's not a function of this Endeavour not being well equipped. It's a function of the previous Endeavour being so well equipped
Exactly.
that it is still relevant in 2024. And
So-
bear in mind, it's an 8-year-old car.
Correct. So let's look at it this way, right? So the space and practicality quotient, it is not an improvement as such,
Yeah.
but standalone, it is still decent. It's not something you'd complain about. There is room for improvement on
Absolutely
certain
not.
aspects.
If
Correct.
as a family car, I don't think you will have an issue with the Endeavour's space, especially if you're going with 5 adults and 2 kids or a dog or whatever. The boot space also for a family of 5 is more than ample,
Okay.
right? And you'll have absolutely no issues in terms of space.
Okay. Now on the features front, the touchscreen was good before in terms of responsiveness
It's
and
better
use.
now.
It's better and bigger now.
Yeah.
They still have, I think, CarPlay and Auto are there. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if
yeah.
it's wireless.
It is.
And the bigger touchscreen, as long as it's not getting a functionality-based hindrance of any sort, bigger touchscreen is fine. You still have heated and ventilated front seats.
Yeah.
Do you have power adjustment for the steering? No, right?
No, that was manual.
Okay. Then you have one-touch power windows for all four. That's still an option. You have powered front seats.
Yes.
There's a panoramic sunroof, which will
Yes.
definitely should be one of the options that we'll be getting with the Endeavour if it does come to the Indian market. We spoke about the powered tailgate, the powered folding of the third row seats. You have rear AC vents that are placed into the
Roof.
ceiling itself.
Yeah.
So that placement itself is also a lot smarter than keeping it down on the floor because it ends up cooling your knee. Anything else major feature wise?
There's a digital driver's display, that too in two different sizes. Now, if you remember, the Endeavour had two screens with an analog speedo in the middle. Now you just have a slab of screen.
Okay.
Really good screen, if I may add. High def, and has all the information you need right there. In terms of features, what's new? Something that the Endeavour very badly needed, a 360-degree camera. Because the sheer size of the thing, I'm just happy that it does.
Resolution?
There's resolution's all right. From the limited time that I did spend with it, it felt all right. Now, obviously, this was on a show floor with with very good lighting around, but I don't think there's going to be a big issue there. It's got level 2 ADAS, lane keep assist, auto emergency braking, all of that. All of this is very good on paper. Everything boils down to calibration, and we'll figure that out if and when the car gets here. From a safety front, I don't really think Ford's ever left any doubt, and we'll have to wait and watch what the India spec gets. But the long and short of the safety thing is whatever you expect a car of this size to have, it has.
Okay. Now, here are certain things, like it comes down to me for the Endeavour specifically, comes down to the powertrain options because you still have rear wheel drive with the option of 4x4 if you were to go for it.
Yeah.
You still, I am going to be going out on a limb on saying this, it is going to be one of the best driving SUVs in that segment. Like the ride, the handling, just how precise the Endeavour felt before, I feel like that is something that the Fortuner still cannot compete with. And that is a place where I will prefer a Ford over the Toyota or even the Isuzu MU-X for example, because those ones do feel a lot more old school and ladder frame like compared to the Endeavour when it comes to at least the handling and precision factor. The engine options that you have overseas, you have the 2-liter bi-turbo diesel, you also have the option of a 3-liter V6 diesel.
Yeah.
Now, we would obviously like the V6 to come in. But there's a reason for it beyond just the bragging rights of it being a V6.
Right. I mean, you look at the engine options there, right? Like you said, there is a bi-turbo diesel, there's a V6, there's also a single turbo diesel. Right. And I want to reference back to the Endeavour 2.0 that we got when the 3.2 got discontinued. We got the single turbo diesel. Right? Even though we were clamoring for give us the bi-turbo, we did not get it. As a segment that operates on optics,
Yeah, significantly.
as a segment that believes bigger is better, right? A 2-liter engine for a car that is the size of a minibus, purely from an optical standpoint, doesn't bode well, right? Because we are a market that believes, there's no replacement for displacement.
At least when it comes to these SUVs, because if you're buying an Endeavour at, let's say, at best 45 to 50 lakh, and then somebody says, hey, इसमें 2 liter आ रही है, 2.2 को तो Scorpio में आ जाती है, then what? It's a weird thing. You can't get into the explanation of nuance there.
So, even though the bi-turbo is technologically very advanced, right? Even though the V6 in essence is simple in its construction, but the V6 has bragging rights which a 4-pot 2-liter bi-turbo will never have.
Neither will a 2.8 diesel that the Fortuner has. A
Right.
V6 is a V6 is a V6.
Exactly. So, more cylinders are better.
Yeah.
For a car that size, a V6 just seems natural. And bear in mind, the 3.2 that we got was a 5-cylinder engine.
Yeah.
Right? So, it will also feel like a natural progression, a natural upgrade from that. In an idealistic world, if I were calling the shots, I'd say offer both. The bi-turbo and the V6.
Yeah,
right?
fair.
Or offer all three.
Yeah, go all
Right?
out.
They'll go all out, because this is where I can bring you to the different Endeavours that I saw on the show floor. That I saw on the show floor. There's a blue one called the Sport. That's kind of the base spec version, a single turbo engine, 4x2, no terrain modes, nothing like that. Think of it as an equivalent to a Fortuner 4x2 diesel auto.
Okay.
That is pretty much it, with a few more features. A few features missing from the top spec, obviously, like a smaller driver's display, no ADAS, all of that. Looks great, absolutely no chrome, full black interior, thumbs up. Then there was the titanium, that is the Endeavour as we know it.
Okay.
It was also finished in a very similar orangey red shade that we all know and love the Endeavour for. Lot of chrome, nice classy tan interiors, all the features that you would imagine. In Thailand, the V6 is limited to the platinum spec, which is one above the titanium.
Okay.
And if introduced in India, it becomes the new
Top spec.
top spec. That has a little more in terms of, the finesse, in terms of the way the interior trims look, stuff like that. Equipment list is more or less the same. The distinguishing factor is the V6 engine by itself. And then there's this outlandish wild track that we saw, the X-Line equivalent, so as to speak. Stealth grey paint job, all-terrain tires, looked ready for the apocalypse. Something that we can only hope and pray for.
I can already smell Karol Bagh drooling with the mod options.
So it's not like Ford does not have the capability to offer choice.
And a desirable product.
And a desirable product. And again, it is a body-on-frame SUV, right? Offering engine options, tailoring it between 4x4, rear-wheel drive, is not exactly rocket science from a manufacturing point of view.
Right. Since we are now coming to the manufacturing bit, right?
Yeah.
I think we should end this discussion with the main point that we were discussing in the previous video.
Yeah.
We had looked at two options, either an imported Endeavour, which seemed like to me first the more likely option, versus one that is locally assembled in Chennai. Now, if we were to look at an imported Endeavour, like we discussed, the price would be on road north of 70 lakh quite easily.
Yeah.
Irrespective of the variant, because it's a 110% tax right there. Now, with the knowledge that you have of this new Endeavour, knowing where the Fortuner is where it is right now, and knowing one very important fact, that this Toyota Fortuner is on its way out.
Yeah.
Is there any case for the Endeavour to come in as an import? Let's say it comes with the 3-liter V6. It has the bragging rights of that. I don't see a V6 engine being enough of a incentive for somebody to spend 70-75 lakh on. Like, let's be, if we go for the V6, that price goes up much more. 70-75 lakh rupees for an Endeavour, even with the V6 at this point. Does it seem worth it with the current on its way out Fortuner being used as the one to beat?
Simple answer, no.
It doesn't stand a chance if it's going to be imported.
It does not.
It's dead on arrival.
At those prices, because okay, with price or with money comes expectations.
Correct.
And no matter how much you love a product, how much you want it to do well, if the product in essence does not meet preset expectations, you're not going to pay for it.
Correct. Like, I can tell you this. I have emotional connect with the Endeavour.
Yeah.
Before I bought my first car, the first thing I kept on looking at was multiple options of the Gen 1 Endeavour that we had in India, second hand. The amount of traffic I have given different used car traders is purely because I was so attached to the car that I still love the Endeavour. But if you tell me, based on what impressions you've got of the Endeavour right now and how much it's not really outdoing the Fortuner in the way that people are making it out to be.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is, I've seen online chatter comparing the Endeavour, saying that it is benchmarked against a Land Cruiser internationally. I've seen a Land Cruiser. I've experienced it. It is supposed to be a 2 to 3 segment above SUV compared to the Endeavour. Make no mistake about it. It is not a Land Cruiser rival, the Endeavour.
It's not. In fact, I had the opportunity to speak with someone from Ford Thailand. Even in Thailand, they're competing against the Fortuner and the MUX. In fact, that is the pecking order in Thailand right now. There's the Fortuner, followed by the MUX, followed very closely by the Endeavour, the Everest as they call it there. And if all goes well with the new Everest, they're looking at claiming the number 2 spot from what I remember. So it's not like the Endeavour is a vastly superior product than what it was. It is a brilliant product. Make absolutely no mistake about it. It is still hugely desirable, right? I want to drive it, but for now, I even want to go out on a limb and say Ford driving dynamics as something that has become a bit of a benchmark in this country, at least, right? And it will hold true to it. Is it that good that I'll be willing to spend 20 lakhs over a Fortuner?
No.
The short answer is no, right? So that entire argument of should Ford look at local assembly, should Ford look at importing, that has just become a lot more clear to me.
Yeah, yeah.
If you want to sell the Endeavour in India,
Make it here.
make it here, because not only does it give you an advantage in terms of price, right? It also lets you one up the Fortuner before it gets here, the new Fortuner.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And then on top of that, if you add garnishes like the bigger size, the V6, right, the better equipment list, then it starts to shape up as a product that is balancing desirability and sensibility.
And that sums up this basic discussion overall, that yes, there is a reasonable amount of hype for the Endeavour.
Yeah.
But make no mistake, all of that is going to go completely down the drain if they choose to go with the imported route.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a possibly more desirable, possibly more competent product than the Fortuner in many ways, but not to the extent that you can place it a segment above.
Yeah.
So yes, if the Endeavour has to make any sense in India, one, it will have to be made in India. And secondly, it will have to be ready for an immediate one-up from the Fortuner potentially, because the new generation of that is going to be on its way, where we are expecting Toyota to, one, get greedier with the price, yes, but also offer a lot of the stuff that has been missing in the Fortuner thus far.
Also, there are rumors of the new Fortuner having a diesel hybrid.
The 48-volt mild hybrid, yeah.
Right? So that is something that might potentially change things, skew things in that segment. So it's not really going to be easy for Ford, but we know as a brand they've never backed down from challenges. That is something that they can take head on, and given the love that this country has for brand Ford, for brand Endeavour, I think we deserve a good Endeavour at a good price.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So that was the long and short of what I thought of the Ford Endeavour. Now, these are first-hand personal experiences. You're free to disagree with me. Please sound off in the comments. You can argue with us. Absolutely no issues. Instagram, please go ahead and follow us. We've done a lot of short content from the Bangkok International Motor Show. Go ahead and check that out. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.
Bye.